What up, guys and gals, and welcome back to the channel. So as you can see, I'm out in the wilderness, the farmland, winter corn growing. Anyways, check this out. All right, so we're on the road again. I'm gonna go ahead and make this video a little something different. But I like this little moto vlog stuff. I think I got the audio down. The last video sounded pretty good, pretty clear. So anyways, we're gonna go to a certain little area. Hopefully the bike stays running in good order. I got the idle adjusted, if you can't tell. But yeah, I gotta get the actual on the throttle from a stop. I gotta get that situated. Anyways, so here we go. I still need to work on GPS. I think I know what the fix is, but I just haven't had haven't had the time to do it. So not a big issue there. 45, what are we going? We're not going the speed limit over anyways, we're going 0. So anyways, I'm gonna go to this business up here. I'll give you guys a little run around. It's almost golden hour. Actually, we're in golden hour right now. We've got about 45 minutes of sunlight left, so we're gonna do the deed and do a pan around of the bike. So as you can see, the sun is setting, but I did get a little video in for you that gives an overall overview of the bike. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the big modifications that I've done to the bike. Let's start off with the bar and mirrors here. These bad boys, top notch, okay? Less air drag. Since these are here and not on the front where there's two antennae, okay, we have less air drag, and this bad boy picks up so much more speed in the quarter mile because of that. We also have LED indicators, okay? So this also helps with air drag, okay? We pick up so much more in the quarter mile because of these LED indicators are not sticking way out here, they're closer to the body. The next big thing we did, we went with some cheapo, yes sir, brake and clutch levers. All right, the first ones were a little bit heavier. These are lighter, so we're actually reducing weight. So with a reduction in weight, we also pick up speed. Good stuff. Nah, I'm just kidding. Let's go and show you guys the real stuff. And here we go. So here is the bike, and we pulled out the good camera for this. Anyway, so here is the bike. I haven't really given you guys a full overview of it because I've been keeping things kind of secret, but as you can tell from the very last video before my me going MIA, here she is. Things have changed. So I'm pretty sure there's people on here who don't care about the updates, but for the people who do, who are Yamaha and FZ1 or FZ enthusiasts, here we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off by mentioning again that here is, and don't worry about the bubbles here, this is a clear little piece, but we have a PowerTune digital dash. Now this bad boy is pretty sneaky and tricked out. We have multiple different settings here that we can use. We even have a drag tree, okay? So this is pretty nice. We have RPM, we have oil pressure, fuel pressure, fuel temp, not fuel temp, sorry, oil temp, oil or water pressure, all that stuff. So it's, oops, I did do that, didn't I? Of course I would, on video. That's snazzy. There we go. We gotta close that out before we keep on changing. I'll get that gauge back. But we have a multiple selection of gauges that can be shown between battery voltage, lambda, boost, AIT, throttle position, RPM, mile per hour. We even have a drag tree. This thing is really tricked out. It shows a lot of cool features and a lot of cool things to be had with that, which I'll be making more videos of that later. The next thing I must address here that I don't know if I even told you guys about, what we have here is the Scavenger Pump that pulls oil from that guy down there, this reservoir underneath the turbo. So basically that's a reservoir here with a breather tube, so that way it can help drain the oil better. That's a Scavenger Pump. I left the clear tube on it, that way I know it's doing its job. It's not pressurized, not a big deal. I'll change this out here in about 2-3 months, that way this right here doesn't get too brittle and too fatigued. We have a crankcase breather here and here on top of the clutch cover, and of course on this timing chain cover, or the cam or the crank cover here. This runs to a very small catch can right here, and I left this clear, that way we know that it's actually doing its job and if there's any oil coming out of it. All right, we kept the exhaust the same, all right, from the last time, except we did have to make a slight bend. So I made a cut and a slight bend here, that way it is missing the swing arm here when the suspension is doing its job and flexing. So we wanted to make sure that that's not going to be any interference for it. And as you can tell, we'll go ahead and bring up the swing arm. The swing arm here is very special. It's custom from C&S Customs down in, I think it was North Carolina? South Carolina. It's one of the two, one of the Carolinas. But anyways, this swing arm is very nice, very custom and tricked out as well, because we had to get particular dimensions from the mounting point and also for the shock here. So I did have to install some bushings myself, but other than that, it is ready to go. Very minor modifications to get this to work, as it is a one-off build and they've never done something like this in particular. I did have to change some things, but that wasn't too much of a task. Now we have the chain. The chain is a 530, of course, but it is a obviously longer to accommodate the swing arm. Now I do have multiple holes here that we can select a length. Right now it's at, I think, 8 inches over, which is not bad. I still have good tuning. I still have good turning abilities on this bike. Nothing too drastic just yet. I probably won't be needing to go back here until we actually get the CO2 boost control stuff situated. So talking about the CO2 boost control here, as you can tell, everything is ran and plumbed, very different and tricked out. I'll get to the nerdy stuff with you guys on that later, but the CO2 tank is active, and as you can see, we do have pressure in the line, we have pressure in the tank. I was lucky enough to find this this gauge, this regulator right here that had FZ on it. It stands for F zone. This is actually a regulator for fish tanks, but also it's CO2 based. It's made for this. It complements the whole bike. So we're gonna go ahead. We did use the quick shifter from DynoJet. I was allowed to go ahead and use this and wire in the into the ECU, so we do have quick shifter function still. This line right here goes all the way to one of these sensors, okay? So I have multiple sensors plumbed in. We have fuel pressure, we have oil pressure, and we have dome pressure. Dome pressure meaning on top of the wastegate. Now, if fuel pressure drops, what I want this to do is the ECU sees that and it can accommodate and make changes into the injectors to open up longer to let the fuel flow and not lean out. We also have oil pressure, so that way it's a safety. If I lose oil pressure, I do not want the bike to grenade itself or lose my bearings. We have a oil shutoff valve here, which that way the turbo doesn't continuously get oil supply while the bike is off. The next thing I want to address is the wastegate. We did have to change the wastegate out. That way we can use CO2 boost control. This is a 4-port wastegate. You see 2 here on the front, and then there's 2 on the very back. The one on the top here, or the front, is actually connected to the turbo. This is what modulates the wastegate back and forth on the spring. Now, what the CO2 does is the CO2 says, screw you spring, I don't care what you want. This guy's making 20 PSI, even though you have a 5-pound spring. That's pretty much what the CO2 tank does. It is a separate way that you can run boost control and get the most out of your wastegate, as far as you can run a low spring and still get a ton of boost. These right here are dual MAC valves that help regulate the CO2. This line runs actually to the tank over there. This one runs to the bottom of the wastegate, which says, hey spring, screw you. So you can have as much as 55 PSI here because that's what the regulator is letting through. But the thing is, you don't want 55 PSI because if it does, boom. So, and then this guy over here, this is just saying, this is the release of the CO2. CO2 goes in here. If there's too much, this one will open and release it. Oh, the sunset's so pretty. The other thing that I don't think I've addressed on the bike is we do have a adjustable shock here. Many of you guys already know this, but the people who don't know, this is adjustable shock. You have control here, control on the bottom right here. There's also one more knuckle that can make adjustments there. That's more for drag racing than anything, but I can set this up to work nicely with the bike. The only other thing I've really done to this now, trick it out, is this laser sensor. So what this does is allow me to see where the bike is in relation to the ground. Now, right now it's zeroed out for ride height, right here. If the bike were to start lifting because of too much power, say 5 inches, I don't want it to go any more than this. At 5 inches, the ECU will start pulling ignition timing to lower the power and to bring the bike back down to earth. Because the higher the bike goes in the air, the easier it is for it to turn on you and loop it. And what's behind door number 2? So, behind door number 2 is actually a Max ECU Sport. Another trick out item to this bike. Now, we are no longer running on a factory ECU. All right, so we're no longer running on a factory ECU. We have the Max Sport in place of it. Now, this thing does a lot more as far as fuel injection, boost control, obviously the laser, okay? We have speed as well as speed for the tire running off the drive shaft. The output shaft of the motor to the transmission. So the Max ECU allows me to run a lot more, I guess you could say, settings with a turbo bike, because the stock ECU only sees so much of what's happening as far as fuel, ignition, and doesn't even see boost pressures actually, because with the stock ECU you have to run a power commander to get certain functions to increase the injector timing or the injector actually spray pattern to get the fuel you need. But with that being said, with the Max ECU, we don't have to worry about that. It can do everything you need it to. The Max ECU Sport is pretty much the baseline between street and strip. If you go to the race, that's big. I wouldn't say big dollars, this was big dollars, but bigger dollars where you have more input outputs for more sensors, and just, I guess you could say, it's mainly for the strip. So this is the quick overview, I guess you could say, of the bike. I hope, it is up to your guys' standards, but if it isn't, I don't care. I built it for me, not for you. Just joking. Anyway, so but yeah, here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys one more quick look around of the bike. It's pretty snazzy, pretty tricked out, but yeah, here she is in all her glory. I still don't know if it's a guy or a girl just yet. I call it old man because it's a sport touring bike, but it could be a girl. Really fast one, I guess.